I'm Nat.
And I'm Nick.
And we're here to talk with you today about implicit bias with our friends Boyce, Andrew, and Amna. So, how much do you all know about implicit bias, which is also sometimes called unconscious bias?
Not much, actually, Nat. I do know a bias is basically a prejudice, a judgment about someone because of their race or gender, for example. And that bias is a part of us all, simply because we're human.
And I know that if we become aware of our own personal embedded biases, we can work to change how we think about things.
That's a great start. You're both right. We all experience implicit bias. There's no way around it. And to demonstrate one aspect of implicit bias, I'd like to start with an exercise. Take a look at this shape. I've drawn it very carefully. What would you guys say it is?
A square.
Definitely a square.
I say it's a square, Nat. Is it?
Actually, Boyce, it isn't. Look at it more closely. It's a rectangle, and knowing that it's a rectangle, can you see that there are slightly different, longer sides?
Well, now that you've mentioned that, I can definitely see that the top and bottom are longer, no question.
No, I think you're wrong, Andrew. It's definitely the sides that are longer. I could have sworn it was a square when I first looked at it. Is this what you mean by implicit bias, Nat? We immediately thought this was a square because that's what was easiest for our eyes?
Well, Nick, what I'm showing you is implicit bias, but not in the way that you think. This actually is a square. All four sides are precisely the same length. But when I tell you that they're different lengths, you automatically believe me because you think I know what I'm talking about because I drew the square. Then what happens to your brain?
Wow, that's amazing. I did believe you. Immediately I thought my eyes must have deceived me. I jumped right on your bandwagon that this was not a square.
Oh, now I get it. You're saying that when we hear things from people that we trust or people with authority, we assume that those things are true or right. We're likely to believe them, even if it goes against what we may initially believe. That's scary, Nat.
Yes, it is, but this actually happens all the time. For instance, going out in the cold. How many of us grew up hearing, oh, put a hat on, you'll catch a cold if your head gets cold? But that's actually not true. You can't catch a cold from being cold or from having your head exposed.
Yeah, but if you're told something enough times, it becomes your reality. And even it's really hard to stop believing it, even when it's not true.
I know exactly what you mean. I heard that a lot growing up, and I still get worried when I go out without a hat. And Nat, as I think about this, what happens if parents or our society teach children something that's not right, and then those children grow up and teach their children the same thing, and so on and so on and on?
I can tell you what happens. Many Africans were brought over here as slaves, remember? And that has followed us. So we really know what the effects of misinformation can have over generations. People thought back then that it was okay to enslave people like me because we were less than. Less intelligent, less feeling, less capable, less human.
Even now, many people still believe blacks can't achieve at the same level as whites, which is a clear example of implicit bias, since there's absolutely no proof this is true.
Implicit bias also happens when people assume and do not have all the right facts. I'm Muslim and I see this all the time. Because of a handful of extremists, Islam is painted as a violent religion, when the truth is that the religion is just as loving and peaceful as Christianity. In fact, Islam and Christianity are actually based on the same principles.
Asians often see it too sometimes in the opposite way. Even when the message is positive, it can still be damaging. For instance, many people believe all Asians are great at math, but what about me, someone who isn't? Everyone assumed that I wasn't trying hard growing up when my grades in math were terrible.
Great examples, guys. Thank you so much for sharing. Clearly, you've all got it. I hope this can easily show how implicit bias can just take hold in our minds, and boy, it can be really hard to get rid of.
This was great, Nat. Thank you. And you know, I think I'd have another example of implicit bias. Would you guys like to hear it?
Yeah. Well, I sure would, Nick. I love rooting out my prejudices. That's the only way, after all, to start opening up your mind to begin to see the world as it really is.
Okay, great. Then take a look at this picture. The owners of these legs are all parents, but only 5 of them are biological mothers to their children. So tell me, how can the other 2 also be parents?
That could be gay mothers.
Adopted moms?
Yeah.
Stepmothers?
Yeah, great thoughts, all good thoughts, but you missed a big one.
Oh, fathers, of course. I consider myself to be pretty open, Nick, but that didn't even cross my mind.
I even go to the ballet a still didn't occur to me that some of those legs could be male. I'm honestly a bit embarrassed.
But don't be afraid, because society has conditioned us this way, to think that ballerinas are female. And now that you're changing your thinking, do you have any other ideas?
Well, yeah. If we start to open our minds and get out of the rut of biological and mothers, there could be siblings who serve as parents or homosexual fathers.
Yeah, you got it. We can think of all kinds of options if we realize our implicit bias is to think of females as ballerinas and as a family as just a mom and a dad. Amazing, isn't it?
And this has really been enlightening, I think, for all of us. I think we taught each other something, and hopefully we taught you something as well.
I hope so too. If you'd like to learn more about implicit bias and start to explore your own biases, Harvard University has a great online program called Project Implicit.
All you need is a computer or mobile device, and you can see where your biases are in regard to race, gender, religion, and sexual orientation.
And even things like handicap and weight. It's fascinating. We sure hope you check it out and start becoming aware of and then addressing your own implicit biases.
Plus, there are a few more resources listed at the end of this video, including the Learning Labs at Cincinnati, Ohio's National Underground Railroad Freedom Center and at Columbus, Ohio at The Ohio State University.
Well, everyone, that's all the time we have for today. It was great to share all this with you, and we hope it was very helpful. Bye!